June 27th, 2000. Sum 41 released their debut EP, Half Hour of Power. As of this recording, it has been exactly 20 years since the EP's release. Since then, Sum 41 have gone on to sell millions of records, play tons of shows, and become one of the most iconic and beloved names in the 2000s pop punk and punk rock scenes. This is the Sum 41 Retrospective. Hi there, I'm Andyb and welcome to the Sum 41 Retrospective, Episode 1. So what exactly is this all about? Well, simply put, I'm a big fan of Sum 41. They were the first band I ever got into, my first real exposure to rock music, and the band that inspired me to play guitar. Really, my love of music in general can be heavily attributed to these guys, and partially to Grover Washington. Music is a big part of my identity, and I can't really imagine myself without it, so I owe a lot to Sum 41 for making me the music fanatic I am today. But now I'm sounding all gushy. So here's how it's gonna work. Each episode I'm gonna take a look at a specific album, going in chronological order of release date. I'm gonna be taking a look at each album's background information, the events leading up to release. I'm gonna be going track by track through each of the songs, and then I'll end with some closing thoughts. It seems pretty straightforward, and that's only because it is. So without much further delay, let's get right into episode 1 and take a look at Half Hour of Power.
This is for the old schoolers.
And by old school, we mean a year ago?
Yeah, because we're not that old.
That's right.
For those of you who don't know yet still decided to click on this video, allow me to give you a somewhat brief early history on the band. Sum 41 was formed in 1996 in Ajax, Canada. The band was formed in 10th grade and was originally called Casper. Only 2 members of the classic lineup were in the band at the time. Rhythm guitarist Derek Whibley, also known as Busy D, and drummer Steve Jogs, how the fuck do you pronounce that? More commonly referred to as Steve-O32. The band's name changed to Sum 41 after going to the 1996 Warped Tour, which happened to be the 41st day of their summer vacation. Summer, 41st day, Sum 41. Makes a lot of sense to me. Sometime after the name change, bassist Jason McCallison, more commonly referred to as Cone, and lead guitarist Dave Brownsound Backus joined the band, creating the now classic Sum 41 lineup. In 1998, the band recorded a demo tape and music video, which they sent to various record companies. They eventually found a taker in Island Records, and the band was signed in 1999. After being signed, the band used the small amount of money they received to book some time at a Canadian studio named Metalworks. At first, the band just intended to record another demo, but they had more developed tracks than they thought, and so the band decided to go the extra mile, and 2 weeks of recording later, the Half Hour of Power EP was born. But you know, I have to ask, why exactly did the band call this an EP? Typically speaking, an EP, or extended play, is 3 to 6 tracks long. But Half Hour of Power is 11 tracks long. It's one of the most fleshed out EPs I've ever seen. Even Derek acknowledges the EP's length.
We really went in to make a demo, and we realized that we had a few more songs than we thought, and it was actually sounding a little bit better than just a demo, so we thought we might as well put out an EP. We knew we had enough songs for a record, but like we said, we just really needed something to get out there and start touring with.
Was a 30-minute runtime really not long enough for an album? It's punk rock we're talking about here. Tons of bands release short albums. I mean, just look at the Descendants. Their classic debut album, Milo Goes to College, is about 22 minutes long, and no one lost their head over that. But whether it should or shouldn't be an EP isn't exactly the most important, or frankly, interesting thing to discuss. So let's finally dive right into the tracks. You know, judging from the cover art and album name, you probably wouldn't expect this EP to open with a heavy metal instrumental entitled Grab the Devil by the Horns and Fuck Him Up the Ass. While it definitely grabs your attention, old name aside, the EP's first minute is actually pretty solid. It features Iron Maiden-esque twin harmonies, and a chugging riff at the halfway point reminiscent of Metallica. Even from the first minute, Sum 41 are already showcasing their heavy metal influences, and those metal influences go on to play a big role in their preceding albums. But we'll cover those in due time. Overall, the track starts everything off with a bit of intensity and opens the EP on a strong note. Hot off the heels of Grab the Devil and Penetrate His Rectum comes the track Machine Gun, and this is a bit more in line with what people would come to expect from the band. It's a fast-paced punk rager that perfectly embodies what early Sum 41 was all about. Youthful aggression, catchy guitar riffs and solos, all topped off with a bratty adolescent attitude. Lyrically, the song is about the morning after a drunken bender, the cruel aftermath of a totally wasted weekend. In tandem with the first track, Machine Gun gets the blood flowing and sets the energy level high, all within the first few minutes of the EP. What I believe is one of the more pop-punky tracks on Half Hour of Power. Highlighted by a simple yet catchy main riff, the track showcases how even in their early years, Sum 41 were capable of writing some very infectious melodies. The lyrics again have an adolescent attitude, but they aren't poorly written, which is more impressive than it sounds. Especially in a genre like pop-punk, it's really easy to come across bands with amateurish or just flat-out bad lyricism. Even though I prefer some of the other pop-punk tunes in the EP, what I believe is still a lot of fun and a worthy addition to the track list. An acronym for Tables Have Turned, THT is more of a hardcore punk-style song. It's another burst of energy, albeit not a very memorable one. It's fine for what it is, but it's not a song that I often seek out on its own, unless I'm listening to the EP in full. I mean, I can spare the 44 seconds. However, it does nicely lead into the next track. Makes No Difference is the most well-known track from Half Hour of Power, and it stands as the EP's sole single, being released on June 12, 2000. The track spawned 2 music videos. The first video showed the band playing pranks and causing chaos in their hometown. This was the video they sent off to record labels in hopes of getting signed. The idea to send the video was from band manager and producer Greg Norrie, as he felt it not only showcased the band's music, but also their personality. After getting signed, a second video was made with the band jamming out at a house party, and features a cameo from DMX. There's some great guitar riffs throughout the track, with the main riff being my favorite on the whole EP. Once again, the vocal melodies are infectious and have a great sing-along quality to them. The song charted at number 26 on the Canadian rock charts and number 32 on the Billboard alternative charts. It may not have been a global smash hit per se, but it did help garner exposure for the band, and for a debut single, that's pretty valuable. Out of all the pop-punk songs in Half Hour of Power, Makes No Difference is the most well-crafted of the bunch. A song dating back to their 1998 demo tape, Summer is one of the earliest songs in the Sum 41 discography. It's another pop-punk tune and the pop-punkiest on the whole EP. From its lyrics about growing up to the woes and ohs in the chorus, it's a candy-coated prime pop-punk tune if I ever heard one. I mean all of this in a loving manner. Being the most poppy song in the EP also means it's one of the catchiest as well. If Summer was released as a single in place of Makes No Difference, I think it would have worked just as well. At the very least, it was a good enough tune that the band saw it fit to re-record it for their next release, but again, I'm getting ahead of myself. Bottom line, Summer is a gold standard pop-punk gem. Drum solo, take 32. You definitely don't anticipate a hard cut to a drum solo at the end of just any song, but unexpected musical change-ups are something you come to expect on this EP. Here we have a wicked drum solo courtesy of Mr. Steve-O32. And this solo is not only a good showcase of his technical chops, but also a showcase of how one writes a drum solo. My personal philosophy on writing drum solos is that you construct them like proper songs, rather than just elongated fills. There should be points of elevation and rest, a sense of development or progression, maybe even some recurring rhythms or rhythmic themes. The added bits of guitar and bass later in the track help to give the solo a bit of a melodic foundation and rhythmic context. They create a counterpoint for the drum fills to play off of, and it makes for an overall engaging and entertaining drum solo. Play me out, Steve! The NoFX influence is strong with this one. It definitely wouldn't feel out of place on a Punk-O-Rama compilation. The track sports high speeds, uncommon song structure, and a cool harmony riff at the bridge. However, this song is most notable for being the only Sum 41 song to date that features a ska section. Yes, an honest-to-God ska section. I remember being asked about this song by a friend in high school. He was all like, dude, you ever hear that one Sum 41 song with trumpets in it? And I just looked at my friend in the same way that a cow looks at an oncoming train. And I leaned in next to him. And I said no. But years later, now I do, and I'm very glad because of it. I know the band doesn't do this kind of music anymore, but I'm only partially kidding when I say that I'd love for the Sums to do another track with a ska section. I mean, just think of the possibilities! Here we have a two-part track. The first part, Dave's Possessed Hair, is the kind of punk that you've come to expect at this point in the EP. It's a perfectly fine track, but the real interest lies in the second half, What We're All About. You may already know this song from the soundtrack of the first Sam Raimi Spider-Man film, featuring a guitar solo from Slayer's Kerry King. Might as well strangle a cat with razor blades for 15 seconds, but that's a different conversation. You may know the song from Spider-Man, but it makes its first appearance as an early cut on Half Hour of Power. Even in its unfinished state, it's still a pretty fun track with a rock and hip-hop groove. Their style of rapping is very reminiscent of the Beastie Boys. Their flows are smooth, there's some fairly witty lines, and they all play off of each other pretty well. But listening to this version only makes me want to listen to the finished product. Except maybe with a better guitar solo. Speaking of the finished version, did you know? The riff behind the guitar solo is actually the main riff of Dave's Possessed Hair. A mildly interesting fact, I think it's a nice little reference to the original two-part track. The third and final instrumental on the EP, and you'd thought you'd seen the last of them. Similar to Grab the Devil and Assault His Anus, it's another minute of metal mayhem. The track features a galloping rhythm and more Iron Maiden-esque twin harmonies. It's at this point that I'd like to ask once again, why wasn't this just an album? I mean, what other EP do you know has instrumental breaks, let alone 3 of them? If this 11 tracks with instrumentals is what they'd call an EP, I'm surprised their debut album wasn't a 3-disc concept record. But I digress. Ride the Chariot to the Devil is another cool musical break that sets us up for the very end. The final track on the EP closes us out in another upbeat pop-punk tune. I always thought the main guitar riff sounded like a Cheshire Cat-style Blink-182 riff. What's up with you? What's up with me? The song speaks about reflection, how you got to where you are, and if it would be different another time around. It's another example of pop-punk lyricism that isn't an embarrassing mess. The track ends with a big marching rhythm that leads into a guitar and drum spasm before finally fading to silence. Your classic big finish. An interesting point to note is that while the track is listed as being 3 minutes and 22 seconds long, there's an extra 3 minutes and 30 seconds of silence tacked onto the track. This was to bring the EP's runtime to exactly 30 minutes, hence the title, Half Hour of Power. Yes, technically speaking, the Half Hour of Power isn't even half an hour of music. What? Well, in all fairness, 26 minutes and 30 seconds of power isn't as cool or fluent of an album title. And that, ladies and gents, brings us to the end. In conclusion, Sum 41's first musical offering is some stellar work. Even in their early years, Derek and company proved themselves as competent musicians and songwriters, with a knack for high-octane riff-based punk. The elements of other genres that they showcase help to establish that they have some musical range. They take influence from a variety of sources, and it clearly shows. Like any new band, there was room to grow, but it was clear that Sum 41 had potential. If you're a fan of Sum 41 who hasn't heard this EP, especially if you're into the pop-punk side of Sum 41, I definitely recommend you check out Half Hour of Power. As far as a debut EP goes, Half Hour of Power does a fantastic job of showcasing their capabilities, carving out an identity for themselves, and getting people interested in hearing more. And oh, would we be hearing more from Sum 41. Cliché as it might sound, this was only the beginning. Next episode, we take a look at the band's smash hit debut album, All Killer, No Filler. I'm Andyb, and thanks for watching.